It looks good, doesn't it?
No. No, I know, but
looks all right on the computer screen, but when you put it out,
Morning everybody, it's great to see another great turnout for the Access 4 Forum. Lots of familiar faces and some new ones. If I could just do some pointers for today, just do some quick housekeeping. As you know, toilets are outside, fully accessible. If there is a fire alarm, follow the green fire exit signs and follow it to the assembly point. If you require assistance, there are people who are trained to assist you out of the building into a safe area. Again, if you need water or coffee, they are outside the door where you were on the gallery, or go down the corridor first on your right, and there'll be a water place there. My name is Phil Olsen. I'm Deputy Leader of the Council, and one of the duties I've got at the Cabinet is to includes what's called inclusion, which would have been equalities and diversity. So my job is to facilitate the voice for as many people in all our communities in Monmouthshire. To my right is I would say indispensable Penny. Penny is the originator and the organiser for both Access 4 Forum and the Over 50s Forum. Without her, these forums would not have happened, and it's been always a delight to see Penny and to work in collaboration together to make sure that we can host it and we can have a good, robust debate in our question time. In front of me, what we call the serve table, I have Richard Cope from Monmouthshire County Council, who is the Passenger Transport Unit Manager. Hugh Jones, the Operations and Commercials Manager for Monmouthshire, and Christian Schmidt, who is Transport Planning and Policy Officer. I also have in the audience Nigel Webb and Robin Evans from the who are Abergavenny taxi representatives. So welcome to you all. Questions have been tabled, so we'll ask, we'll go to each one. When you're on the microphone, it's just pressing the central button and the light goes red. When you're not speaking, you can take it off because that's where the camera will be focusing on the person that's speaking on that particular microphone. When your question is up, could you just say your name and which town you're from or organisation? So, is there anything else to do, or go straight to questions? Filming. Oh yes, of course, yes, sorry. Oh yeah, I've got a list here with two more things. Yes, we are filming today for the Monmouthshire Voices project, that's Penny's project. And also, I did hear somebody who reminded me, you should always say this in housekeeping rules. If you do have a mobile, please can you make sure that you have actually not switched it off, but obviously turned it to silence, because that will interfere with the microphones, etc. So, go then to the first question. I don't know who it's from, but do you want me to read the question? From? Is Sarah Griffiths ready for our first question? Could you just read out the question, please?
I'm just getting away. I'm just good at chose.
Sarah, on the first one that you wanted to know about the grassroots buses, do you
Oh,
remember what
yeah.
we spoke about?
Yeah, that's.
Do you want me to read it for you?
Oh,
Are you
yes.
okay? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sarah wants to know, she feels that she can't get a grassroots bus anymore and wants to know why this is. They used to supply her when she went to Green Fingers and My Day, My Life, and they don't supply them anymore. And she wanted to know what's happened to the buses that obviously aren't being supplied. because she's having to get taxis instead. Is that right? Yeah, okay.
Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Sarah. My name is Hugh Jones. I'm the Operations and Commercial Manager for the Passenger Transport Unit, and within my remit is the grassroots service. In relation to the question, which I'd like to answer, the grassroots service was involved for a number of years where we were provided under service level agreement a service to get service users into through Green Fingers and My Day My Life, which turned into My Day My Life. Through a subsequent review of that service, where we were quite successful in reducing the number of resources that were required to provide a like-for-like service, we believe that they've reviewed the transport policy for service users coming into day centres such as that, and we've been asked, we've been given notice not to provide that service any longer. We understand that there is likely to be a transport policy review for those people who may be entitled to transport into those day services, but that's why, in essence, grassroots isn't involved in that particular process. Outside of that, grassroots is still operational, very much so within Monmouthshire, and covers Abergavenny also, where we have an 0800 free-flowing number that you can place any sort of expressions of interest, any request to go from A to B, and we will try as a demand responsive service with the resources that we have available to provide that journey for you. Now, I hasten to add that we may not be able to accommodate your exact requirements, maybe not even on the exact day, but what I am able to say is that we are very, very good, we're quite proficient in offering an alternative, as in if you would like to go for argument's sake at 10 o'clock in the morning, we may not be able to offer 10 o'clock, we may be able to offer 10:30 or 11 o'clock, something like that, so that you always get that kind of option, as opposed to hopefully receiving a response that would be in the minority of cases that unfortunately we can't help you at all. That would be in the minority of cases. That's reflected on the number of passengers that we take over a month, which is around about 5,000, something like that, is peak with the resources that we have at present. The point I suppose that I'm trying to make here is that outside of the service level agreement that we've had with Green Fingers and the other daycare centres, where we're no longer operational under that remit, we are still operational under grassroots, where you can ring that 0800 number and we can see if we can accommodate your requests. I hope that answers the point, by the way.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. Or do you want to get on this question?
I wanted to come on. Sorry, Jenny Barnes, Care. I wanted to come on this question because it seems a bit odd having a policy review after the service is terminated. Obviously, people are saying that they can't get grassroots anymore, and that's been our experience as well, that it simply isn't operating for service users anymore. Why have a policy review afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I very much take the point. I mean, just to reiterate that we were given notice by colleagues within the Social Services Directorate, where they hold the policy that our services were no longer required. And I hope to be as helpful as I possibly can here today, in as much as I may not be able to answer that directly as to why they changed the policy and what maybe their policy now is. That may be something, hopefully it's by any means helpful, that we direct towards the service area, social services.
Is this just about money?
From our perspective, we have been very successful in providing cost-saving measures, where we've provided a service through grassroots that has reduced almost by a third the resources that have provided a like-for-like service, provided a service into the daycare centres and then coming out. That has been over the 2-year period that we were operational, saving almost a third of the resources. So for us, I think we met our objectives and we provided a cost saving. However, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on whether the revision in their policy is for any related reason.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question, which is from the Stroke Association. Please.
Hello, I'm Pam Johnson. I work for the Stroke Association across Newport and Monmouthshire. Firstly, I apologise for the long question. And I would like to say that there are a lot of positives for grassroots for our members as well as the negatives. But our members' issues are still related to grassroots, and they're struggling to get several people back and forth to meetings from Monmouth to Chepstow. Not just the previous clients that I spoke about at a previous forum, but others from Raglan. And this is preventing them from taking part in several activities that would be extremely beneficial to their health and well-being. I realise that grassroots have got a licence which only allows them to travel 15 miles, and this is the problem. But surely it's a community service that needs looking at with this licence, so that people in rural areas are not disadvantaged in this way.
Morning, nice to see you again. I remember you from the last forum meeting. I think, just to reflect on what you just said, that is quite accurate. Grassroots does run under a licence, which we are governed by the Traffic Commissioner, and we're issued by the Traffic Commissioner, which stipulates that we operate on a 15-mile basis from the registered town. That provides its benefits, in as much as it means that we can provide a flexible service, which in operational terms means that we're not governed by a specific timetable or a route. That's the pros. The cons is that can only happen within a limited distance, which is 15 miles. From prior conversations with yourself and through previous forums, we understand that requirement still exists, and we understand the benefits to your group. Also reflect on the fact that grassroots is able to help within that remit, and perhaps the people that you represent have benefited from that. I think the issue is that how can we look collectively, and that is something that I'm willing to offer going forward. How can we offer a service collectively within that remit, where we are governed by an authority figure, then, if you like, outside of the Monmouthshire, as a Traffic Commissioner, to provide you with such a service. Again, I think, bottom line is that we're open to speak to you about any ideas in which we can do that, but the practicalities remain as they, and the stipulations remain as they did do previously with regards to the licence.
Can I just come back with that? Is there any way that you can look at that licence? Because it's 16 miles, it's 1 mile difference that these people have to do, and it's preventing them access in so many things. It's not really a community transport service for them, because they can't get to where they need to go. And because Monmouthshire is so rural, it does obviously affect people in Monmouthshire more than it would in Newport or Cumbrae.
Perhaps I can come in there. Good morning, everybody. I'm Richard Cope. I'm the business manager of Passenger Transport and Transport Strategy. We're governed by the Traffic Commissioner, unfortunately, with this. When you register a service, you register it with the town in question, and we can only go to a 15-mile radius outside of that town. That is part and parcel of the stipulation of the licence and the permit that we get from the Traffic Commissioner. And that's basically for any operator who operates that type of service. So we're not able to change the 15-mile radius, unfortunately. I mean, there possibly will be ways that we can talk about perhaps doing something slightly different, perhaps on a private hire basis, so that you could maybe get a number of people into a venue and look at it on that basis, maybe. But currently, we can't do it via a licence for running the actual service, because it has to be within that 50-mile radius, that website.
If I just make an addition to that, I would make an assumption here that the traffic commissioner would also make a stipulation for the 15 miles, and in order to consider the fact that there are other operators that may be in a position to assist, and we don't create a monopoly situation, covering Monmouthshire wide. I say that because I recognise that there are representatives of taxi associations in different areas of Monmouthshire here today, and maybe they're in a position to offer a service as well, albeit at a cost. But it would be right for me not to acknowledge their presence here today, and they may be equally able to offer a service to you.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question then, which is from Heidi Ingle-Gillis.
She's not here,
That's
sorry.
fine, I'll read it. Can we make sure there's escorts on transport, bus routes, etc., so that people who are frail and or have mild dementia can access the service?
Bless you. Happy to answer this one as well. The way in which Grassroots has operated and its foundation for its operations since 2004 has been volunteer-led, it's been volunteer-based, and it's actually supported then by paid members of passenger transport unit operational staff in their absence. When members subscribe to the service, they complete a self-certification declaration, which allows us to understand at the very outset what their individual needs are, so that we can assess whether Grassroots is able to, as a service, able to meet their personal needs. The evaluation process after that has involved trained members of staff who will go out and assist with that process, and to make sure that, as we say, if we're going to provide a vehicle and a service that is appropriate and meets the needs of the service user. However, outside of that, if the risk assessment process would determine that a carer would either be beneficial or would either be necessary in order to accommodate that passenger, unfortunately, we need to pass that back to either the user themselves, where maybe a family member can come involved, or to the day centre where staff may be able to assist as well. That's the current position, and that's how we've operated to date. In view of the question, I'm very much happy to consider the volunteers becoming involved as escorts. But I hasten to add that when in the absence of those volunteers, should there be any reason such as sickness or just general absence, is that remains a condition then for that individual to travel. Outside of the, otherwise, there requires a budget consideration to, if you like, guarantee that when we provide a service to that particular service user, that we provide an escort, because what we're agreeing to then is that that person requires assistance in order for them to travel. So we're either got to provide it regardless, or we may have to, which would be worst case scenario for us, in the delivery of a service, to say to a service user, I'm very sorry, but we can't accommodate you on that day. Otherwise, I'm quite happy to bring it to the Grassroots Committee meeting at the next juncture, the next meeting, but we can put that out for expressions of interest. No problem at all.
Trevor Phillips, Grassroots driver ever since its inception. The drivers already help passengers on and off the bus if they've got special needs. We also take wheelchairs and their carer with them. There's no problem with that, never has been. And I don't know why people have got a problem with that.
to sort of support Trevor's statement there, I think historically the 18 or so active volunteers that we have within Grassroots and supported by PTU members of staff, true to form, that you know, we're providing with the training that is provided, such as safeguarding and manual handling and things like that. That we do what we can in order to provide the service, but what we're becoming aware of is that in any unfortunate circumstance that one of our passengers has a decline in their health, or the particular needs aren't the same as they used to be, particularly when they self-certified as a member, that the volunteer drivers may have to do something over and above what they currently do. And it's by recommendation sometimes from social workers, daycare centres, organisations such as a stroke group, etc., that would ask of the service, Grassroots, to provide additional support for the driver. Bearing in mind what we need to consider the fact is that we have a duty of care to all of our passengers on the vehicle at the same time, such that if the driver were to remove him or herself to assist somebody going into their property or aid with the shopping, they're not actually in a position of responsibility any longer for the people that remain on that vehicle. So it's all about making sure that we meet the needs of not only the service and that service remains sustainable, but obviously meeting the needs of those people that we agree to undertake on our vehicles, and equally so that we maintain a duty of care also. I hope that's supportive for you actually, Trevor, as you say, one of the first volunteers to join Grassroots.
Okay, we do have time for more questions on Grassroots. Is there anybody else who's got any comments, please?
I think at the last forum it was brought up, Transport Forum, about Midas training. It seems to be a problem that there's a shortage of people that are trained. I know that's a problem in some supported living houses as well, that some of the staff are not trained and there's buses lying about that can't be driven. And it also seems to have an impact on Grassroots as well. Can you tell me if training would be provided by Monmouthshire County Council, or how would people go about financing it for third sector organisations?
Yeah, thanks for that. Very much happy to answer that. We've actually put another member of staff through the instruction training to deliver Midas. So we have 2 Midas qualified members of staff now that cover both the north and the south. That covers both the passenger transport unit as a department, but equally where we support other organisations, could even be outside of Monmouthshire, where they have that same pressure in the qualification of Midas in order to drive the vehicles that they would want to. We're pretty, just as an example in point, we had an organisation come to us last minute where they required the training, and we were able to accommodate them both on a refresher level as well as a new application for Midas training. I'm not, I don't know whether your comments about vehicles not being able to be driven because of the Midas issue is reflective of the passenger transport unit service. Certainly from my point of view, every vehicle is utilised to the point where I can tell you that on days like today, there isn't a single resource available to offer in addition. So I'm not sure that's reflective of the PTU area. Perhaps maybe in, I don't know if you're thinking of daycare centres or something like that.
I'm just trying to get a hire a minibus, either something that you should do with day services each year. That's not going to happen this year because the under 65s in Monmouth are now sharing the service. So it just wasn't possible to take another group out and be back for the sort of home times. I was told when I was a current, I went to the PTU department and they told me that buses have been taken out of service. So there are actually less buses now. Is that right?
I think what you're referring to is perhaps the social services buses.
And from the PTU, I couldn't even hire one privately from Monmouthshire County Council. I had to cancel this altogether because there was just no buses.
Well, I mean, of course, everything depends on the availability of resources at that time, and that will be very much something that we would need to identify on an individual basis.
Could you just clarify if buses have been taken out of service though?
In social service area, yes, they have. Yes,
Right.
yes, they have. What we're talking about here, please correct me if I'm wrong, is addressed towards the PTU provision and the PTU availability to provide Midas. Outside of this, perhaps if you'd like a chat or you have any further requirements for vehicles, you can contact me directly for vehicle availability and Midas training. So I'm in a position to help you.
Yeah, could you tell me the cost of Midas training? Is it provided by, is it up to organisations to pay for it, or is it supported by the council?
It is. It's £45 per member of staff.
Okay.
Sorry. I just noticed the sheet about grassroots service.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to that after I've taken all your questions.
Okay.
Please, Jenny.
These may be just malicious rumours, but we've heard that Grassroots is operating almost entirely down in Newport now, not Monmouthshire, having combined with Newport, and that the service is no longer a service really for service users, but it's more, it can be hired for money, and most of your work is now hired work rather than a service for people with disabilities. And you just said that the cost of Midas is £45 per member. We've heard something about £1,400 for a Midas training that has to be borne by the group. Can you, it's all about money, and that's what I'm concerned.
Certainly. Yes, I can confirm that the passenger transport unit has a service level agreement with Newport City Council to provide a service previously known as Newlink. But in actual fact, that it hasn't got an impact on the resources of the Grassroots, because the resources vehicle-wise actually transferred from Newport City as part of that service level agreement. I would therefore suggest that an additional resource that's been provided to Monmouthshire that can be used under the Grassroots remit is only going to be something that our Monmouthshire Grassroots members can take advantage of, in as much as that it provides an additional resource that could be available for them. Obviously, you know, there are collaborative agendas at the moment with neighbouring authorities, but actually in practical terms, Monmouthshire is on the border of Newport, and it kind of makes sense that it provides an opportunity where we are working across those two borders, that we can provide opportunity for our members to have further access to those same vehicles. With regards to the training element, what I would hazard a guess at is that the cost that you're quoting at £1,400 is likely to be for the vocational qualification, which is your PSV/PCV licence, as opposed to Midas. Well, the difference between the two is that if you have a minimum licence that we require, and that's basically if you were passing test before January 1997, then the Midas would allow you to drive one of our vehicles on a self-drive hire basis, not for hire reward. However, if you pass the test after January 1997, then by token of the change in legislation, it may not allow you to drive the particular vehicle that we would have in our fleet. However, I've recently put a business case forward for 2 vehicles to be purchased to come into the Grassroots fleet, which are of a particular specification. The weight and the restriction here on licenses on the weight of the vehicle, maximum authorised mass is technically known as, that in principle allows for someone with the inferior licence, that is after January 97, to potentially drive this type of vehicle, and that formulates part of my business case to purchase these 2 vehicles.
Are you talking something beyond the D1 that you need on your licence?
The D1, for those who aren't aware, when you look at the driver's card, will have may have a restriction on the license. And if it says 101 after the D1 on your license, what that means is that you're able to drive up to 16 passengers, but not offer a higher reward, which means to say that if you are being employed to drive that vehicle, or you're receiving any kind of reward in order to do so beyond expenses, out-of-pocket expenses, then you're not permitted to drive that vehicle. By the advice that we're given, and industry-wide, it's known to be that line is drawn January 1997. Equally, that applies, because what you've got to be mindful of is that the types of vehicles that are used in this kind of service carry what is known as a maximum authorised mass on that vehicle. So regardless of whether you're a volunteer or not, if you were to be driving a vehicle which is over 3.5 tons in maximum authorised mass, then you would require a particular licence, volunteer or not. And I sort of come back to the lady's point about why the indifference there in the costs of providing training are as they are. One would cover the mine desk, which is £45 on the assumption that the driver in question has the minimum licence required, and the other cost would imply that the driver doesn't have the minimum licence required, and therefore they would need a vocational training, which would be roughly at that cost.
Thank you. I'm now going to, I know that Hugh wants to address some issues that have been brought up by email from the visually impaired group regarding journey bookings, journey limits, membership, no-shows and late shows. Hugh, could you respond to those inquiries, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we received yesterday evening some information from the Montreux Visually Impaired Group. Actually, I'm quite happy to respond to this sort of generally speaking, but given the fact that there's quite a bit of detail within the email, it may be more pertinent to refer this to a meeting which is actually scheduled for Richard to attend next month in order to address their particular problems. As I say, there are particular issues in very, very detailed issues here which we may not be able to respond to with the same detail, so I apologise if it's otherwise a general response. In essence, we recognise that wherever there is a shortfall in service, then of course, we will investigate it and we will apologise should that end up being the case. As I mentioned earlier, Grassroots is a demand-responsive service which predominantly operates on a volunteer-led scheme. In their absence, we provide paid PTU drivers to ensure that the commitments that we have made to our service users are met within the best of our capabilities. However, I think what is fair to acknowledge is that this is a flexible bus scheme as well. So, any times which we give for a service are indicative, and they're subject to the same things as road users, as anybody else. If there are any sort of delays through road works or through closures or through mechanical breakdown, then of course we can only be reactive to that. But I feel that the best way in which we can overcome that, that's something we may not be able to avoid. What we can avoid is communicating back and letting people know what the situation is. I feel that we're quite good at that. As far as what we understand to be a concern through our members is the opportunity to actually make a booking with Grassroots. A little while ago, we piloted a scheme where the Grassroots calls, owing to, from a service delivery point of view, an increase in Grassroots members. It transferred over to a call centre, which is operated by Monmouthshire County Council, and it actually, the call centre do take other calls apart from Grassroots, but it gave the opportunity for our members to have access to more than just what was previously a few members of admin staff within the PTU office. So that in principle, you know, the opportunity to get through to us was greater achieved there, if we like. Through feedback that we received, we are going to have a review meeting with the call centre to address some of the concerns that we have had outside of this, to address those. And some of those come back to the point of this letter from the Monmouthshire Vision Repair Group, may identify particular training needs and training gaps where, administratively speaking, they may have contributed towards a bus, as Chair put it, being a no-show on the day that we've then been reactive to, and we've had to apologise for. That said, I spoke with our coordinator today, and that hasn't been an issue for this particular group for the last number of months, although we do acknowledge a number of months ago where on two particular occasions we did, as a service, fail to meet their needs, and we looked into that in order so that it shouldn't happen again. Otherwise, I know that Richard, as I said earlier, is meeting with that particular group then, and it may be more pertinent to refer this particular concern or notice to that meeting, as long as there aren't any further objections.
Can I come in on that?
Please.
Because I was the person who wrote this letter, right? So, and I have first-hand experience this morning about the Grassroots service that brought me here. The driver called me on my mobile phone, right, at around about 20 past 9, and he was due to pick me up at 5 past 10. He thought, whereabouts in Redbrook are you? I said, I'm not in Redbrook. I'm in Redbrook Road. Oh, I was told to go to Redbrook, Royal Mono. So the information the driver got from the call centre was totally wrong. I presume the call centre had read out the address as Redbrook, Royal Mono, not Royal Mono, Redbrook Road. Right? He had my phone number only because I didn't penny my phone number the day before because I was concerned about the pickup time. It managed my mobile number. Now he told me, he said, if I hadn't had your mobile number, I would have gone to Redbrook, which is another 2.5 miles down the road. So there's clearly a problem between the person driving the bus and the call centre that passes on the information. And this was an incident today, and there's been a number of incidents like that quite recently, over the last 2 or 3 months. So that is one of our major concerns. So I'm glad you say that you're going to review performance with the call centre, because I think that review is overdue. And I hope you can sort out the problems.
Hugh, do you have a percentage complaints from the call centre? Do they keep a record of any complaints they get back on your service, that they're not booking it properly?
On the most recent review, I've asked for particular performance indicators from the call centre, how many calls they are taking on our behalf, how many drop calls they may be aware of on our behalf, so that we can have some kind of measure here to decide what's good and what's not good. Part of my inquiry with them going forward, I think it's a very good idea to see if they're registering any complaints. Departmentally, we have a register of the complaints that we receive for a service. But to answer your question, I will inquire with them at that review, which we're happy to do. I think that whereas for Mr. Hoyle, I assume, but for Mr. Hoyle's benefit and for that the call centre, I need to support them in the case that this morning the particular requests for transport here weren't through the call centre. So I will be happy to investigate any particular shortfall there with staff, but in their defence they weren't involved this morning. I think we need to look at the positives overall as well of what the call centre have done for the service, in as much as our performance indicators show that we are able to accommodate, and we do, a growing number of passengers over a monthly period, and that's only token to their involvement as well and their availability over and above the fewer members of staff, administratively speaking, that were available to us within the PTU to otherwise do that. Of course, we can always reflect on the areas where we haven't, where we could improve, and I would suggest at this stage that is what we will be doing.
Thanks, Jenny.
I've come back to the original question that I asked, and that's really to get an idea of the level of service you're giving to disabled people. How much of your service is hire for money from groups, and how much is for individual service unit users?
I don't have the actual percentage figures to hand as you might expect, but I would safely say that a very, very, very small percentage of any grassroots requests are on the basis of private hire money, simply because our priority in delivering the service is to the grassroots members on a demand responsive basis rather than private hire. Most of our, if you like, self-drive or private hire work that involves grassroots vehicles will be outside of our operational times for members.
If you turn people down though, are they then given the opportunity to private hire and do the job that way?
No.
People need to get there.
No, they wouldn't be. I mean, if it was a case where we weren't able to accommodate the request on licence grounds, that may give an opportunity for us to be helpful in offering a service through a different sort of, by different means. But that would be the only that I can think of that we would refer to a private hire. The priority would be the delivery of a service through the grassroots scheme, again where we're governed by the 15-mile limit. And as I mentioned earlier, if we aren't, I'm quite proud of the fact that as a service, that it would be very, very rare for us to say, no, we can't help you at all, full stop. There would be very, very few reasons why we would need to do that, and that would be as a last resort. What we will do as a protocol is offer an alternative, whether they be on times or days, where we've already had and already agreed to a commitment elsewhere, again as a demand responsive service. Perhaps if we put some context on this as well, we may not be able to accommodate a single request for a trip down to the Royal Gwent Hospital, for example, where there are maybe 10 grassroots members that have booked in prior to go to the local village at the same time. It isn't, we need to look at the service as a sustainable provision and make sometimes difficult decisions where we need to look at majority of users as opposed to a minority. But the minority.
I think you need to look at your PR then, because the message on the ground is that this service is no longer available to people with disabilities. And that's really quite general, that people aren't using it. You say no, that's not the case. But that's what, you need to look at your PR then, because that's certainly what's around. Thank you.
I'm very interested, of course, at any point in time to get feedback from the community if there are areas where we can improve and if there are areas that aren't being served. I feel that, you know, in forums like this, we're able to provide a lot more information than may be currently available and give particular reasons and explanations as to why something can't happen the way that individuals or groups, for that matter, would like them to. However, you know, yes, PR we can look at. If we need to target particular areas, I'd be interested in speaking with you separately to understand where we would benefit in doing so. As I say, PI speaking, performance indicator speaking, you know, grassroots services are forever on the incline in terms of what we're able to do. The number of vehicles that we have in the fleet have been on the increase in terms of what are DDA compliant in order to accommodate those who have mobility issues. But equally so, what we're doing is that we're involved in other vehicles that aren't particularly, strictly speaking, classed as the grassroots fleet, but they come under the Monmouthshire PTU fleet, where we can offer what we call overspill services. And those overspill services can involve, say, a minibus or something of that nature that isn't particularly DDA compliant, but is able to offer a level of service to individuals or groups in the absence of any other. And I think that I'd be happy to provide some assurances to you of that fact, but equally without ignoring what you're bringing to our attention, to my attention particularly, that there may be particular areas of Monmouthshire, particular groups, where they feel that that would be not the case.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions, so I've got Sylvia first and then Pam, please.
My question is, with Brexit, the referendum happening tomorrow, how will this European...
Can I stop that? I have to be very sensitive about any events.
No, I'm not going in. I'm just saying hypothetically, if it's a Brexit, how will that impact on European funding?
I'm sorry, I don't know if we can answer that question one-to-one later, but I can't have it on record. The reason being because we're in a public maintained building, with a very important vote tomorrow, if there even like say the general election, we have to be seen to be neutral and not engage in anything that may or may not happen because of tomorrow. I mean, that might sound a bit dictatorial and...
Are we in Purda, Chair?
Here we are, yes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are super sensitive during any election campaign or referendum campaign. We have to be seen to be as neutral.
Okay,
But I'm sure that question can be addressed right. It's absolutely legitimate worry, legitimate question. It's just that we have to be seen to be as if it weren't happening. So apologies for everybody on that, but I will ensure you'll get your question answered privately later, if that's okay.
I voted to stay in.
Okay.
I voted to stay in.
Moving on. Pam, please.
Can you
Economy could affect the economy. Sorry. Sorry.
Pam from the Stroke Association again. From what you're saying, then, I'm still talking about the same people I always talk about, that can't access your grassroots community transport. From what you're saying, can they hire you privately then, if they're over the 15-mile limit? And if so, how much roughly would that cost?
The issue of private hires is very much, well, first of all, I'm happy to talk to you, outside of this group to see how we will be able to accommodate, because the priority of vehicles will need to be to maintain first and foremost a grassroots service. So I'm assuming that your particular needs would be for a DDA low floor spec vehicle, which I can safely say at this stage wouldn't be available certainly during the day, because it would be used on grassroots. However, outside of grassroots operational times, and certainly on the weekends, they are available for private hire, where they're not perhaps having maintenance or something like that being done on them. And the costs will obviously be determined by where you want to go and at what times, etc., etc. So it is something that's available to you, but obviously with that caveat, and I'm mindful of the fact that you need to provide some emphasis and some reassurance that they're being prioritised in respect of service delivery of grassroots first.
Okay, we're running about on time, so what we'll do is we'll move on in a moment. I just want to throw something to you, and I'll throw this to the gents. We have something inside the council called #Future Monmouthshire, and it's something that we're working on about things that are going to be happening and the challenges that Monmouthshire faces in 10, 20, and so on through the decades, years. So, gents, one of the exciting things at the moment everyone's talking about is robotics, driverless cars, and artificial intelligence. And golden opportunities that might just give, if we've got a fleet in the future of driverless cars that are responsive to people's needs, can you foresee that future, and do you see it as being an opportunity? And actually, with Future Monmouthshire, not just discussing that, but also about an ageing society, etc. It might be a subject for discussion that you want at one of your forums after this one this year. So just, gents, just to play with that idea, do you foresee that happening, and do you see it as an opportunity?
Monmouthshire in the next 1,000 years.
Can I just say that's open to women too?
Yes.
Unless you're in Saudi Arabia.
We clearly need, as an authority, as well as a service, overall we need to look at what the future is, what the future holds, how we deliver services, whether we continue to deliver services, what's sustainable, what is not. In terms of technology, it's an ever-changing thing. We are currently trialling Windows smartphones with smart applications and things like that, so that drivers aren't at the moment dealing with pieces of paper with information on. And this is where, referring to Mr. Hoyle, where the accuracy can become a little bit blurred and lost, where direct instructions being given to drivers on handheld devices and things like that. Longer term for our service area, it's about what governs us as well. The license requirements change. What happens with our volunteers when they no longer become available to us as volunteers, who then takes over? What license would those then new generation of volunteers hold? Would it be better for us to have some kind of automated artificial intelligence, driver there? I'm sure we've all seen a film of some, similar description, which sort of addresses or gives you an idea of what that may look like. I think the answer in short is absolutely.
Thanks for that. Just a bit of forward thinking. I mean, personally, I can't look, well, in the decades to come, I'll be getting a robot from into my house doing stuff, who knows. Now, I've just been reminded, I'm going to have to move on to the next section, which is going to be about...
Excuse me, before you close, could I just seek clarification?
Yes.
On the letter that we submitted. There is a lot of detail in this. There were a couple of general issues that I thought we ought to discuss here. And one is the issue about a group booking. We are a group. We meet regularly. We're not just calling out the blue 24 hours to go to an appointment to a hospital or to go shopping or something like that, which I know is the service that you provide. But from what I understand, you're currently unable to take a group booking on an advanced basis. So you put us in your calendar, the first and third Thursday of the month, we need your service. Now, could you clarify whether that is possible?
Very much happy to do so. It is very possible. In fact, it's been my suggestion to the coordinator that we do look to do this as a practice. We are able to take group bookings and we are able to take regular bookings. I think the difference with your particular group, Mr. Hoyle, is that they're not always the same places that you would go to.
Well, the first Thursday of the month is the same place. It's always Bridges Community Centre. The third Thursday of the month, okay, it's a restaurant or a pub or something like that. So it may not always be the same place, but it's always in the same radius.
We have the capability within our systems to put a regular booking in. If it's the first Thursday of every month, for argument's sake, that goes from A to B consistently, we are able to do that, and I can confirm that we're happy to do that. The otherwise, in principle, it becomes how we're able to capture your specific needs in terms of different times or places or whatever. We're outside of what your regular booking can be, and that's something that we'll be happy to work with you with. In principle, yes, that's fine.
Okay. The other point was on the 15-mile radius. Is the Transport Commissioner saying that from a town, 15-mile radius of a town, the town centre, right? Now, does that radius go out of the county? Remember, Monmouthshire is within 2 miles of the county boundary. Now, we've been told previously that you don't, on some occasions, not obviously every occasion, but on some occasions we've been told we can't go out of Monmouthshire, or they can't take us to Colford or another village close by, but it's in Hereford or Gloucester. So, are you able to go outside the county boundary?
Yes, we are able to go outside the county boundary. Earlier I referred to grassroots being involved in a service level agreement with Newport, and we have a similar arrangement in Torvine as well. So that kind of substantiates the point. Yes, we are able to do so. I think where there's an element of confusion there, if you don't mind me saying so, is the ability for concessionary pass holders to have access to the grassroots service free of charge from out of county. Where that isn't available, there is a cost to that because of the issue with Welsh and English concessionary passes.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, I am going to have to wrap it up now. I'm going to have to wrap it up on this section because we need to stay to time. I have another set of questions.
There is just one point on that I would like a clarification on.
I'm going to try and keep.
On the bus passes, you can actually go out of the county to a town and back into Monmouthshire.
Okay, thanks for that point. But I am now going to keep us on time and move. Can I just ask you, there is an attendance sheet going around the room. If you can sign that, it is important because if there is a fire alarm, we'd like to check the list off to see if they're actually out of the building, and it will prevent obviously any misuse of contact. Okay, moving on now to a question on dial-a-ride. Marianne, please.
It's really, I'd like to sort of clarification on how it works. It's quite a while since I last inquired about it at Drybridge House, and I was told that we would show somebody's bus pass and that would then X amount of money was claimed back through the council. But when I inquired about how far we go, again like grassroots, it was only a short distance, so it wouldn't function for us. What we want to do is to get groups together from Monmouth and Abergavenny. We can't use grassroots, and we couldn't use dial-a-ride. And really, who's making the money? Who's making a profit out of that? I'd like to know, because we could go to Wysham, for example, but we couldn't go to Raglan. Is there a strict criteria on how far you can go?
Yes, I can answer that. Dial-a-ride is actually registered in exactly the same way as grassroots. It's a Section 22 permit, and Bridges basically recoup the concessionary fares in the same way as grassroots. But they only get roughly about £2.18 per passenger per single journey on it. So nobody's actually making any money out of it, but it is covering costs basically.
So it's quite restrictive then, like grassroots, and again that's that 15 mile.
It has a 15-mile radius, yeah. So they can go to Raglan, you because that's not 15 miles.
I couldn't go to Abergavenny, that's where
But no, you
we
wouldn't
need
go
to
to
go.
Abergavenny because it's just outside of it, unfortunately. But it will do that. But they only run that currently on, I think, 2 days a week. So when the bus is available, if the bus is available outside of that, you could do it through Bridges, you know, through their own arrangements. But
I
obviously,
tried to do that, it's
they
very
can't do
hard to get anything.
I don't think they've got volunteers every day of the week as well that actually drive the bus. I'm not positive of that, but
Yeah.
I know that, you know, obviously they do 2 days a week on Dial-A-Ride, but it is basically running the same as grassroots.
Thank you. The next question is, I'm told, anonymous. Send it by email. I'll read out the question for you, gents. If someone is in Royal Gwent, for instance, it costs £50 round trip to visit in a taxi. Yeah. Considering the amount of people that must have to visit each week, is there a way that a bus could be provided that people could contribute towards that cost? This would save money for the user, but also making money for the supplier, as they would have guaranteed custom. Would bus companies or taxi firms be interested in such a proposition?
I was wondering if the taxi guys wanted to have any input on this?
Good morning, my name is Nigel Webb, I'm the taxi representative for Abergavenny. I represent all the taxi companies in Abergavenny only, nowhere else in Monmouth, so I'm just based in Abergavenny. There are a few disabled minibuses in Abergavenny that are wheelchair access. That's where it states could cost £50 to visit in a taxi. It's not very often you get a hospital that will give 5 or 6 people the same time appointments. So if there's only one person going down, that pay will be met by the single person. If there's 5 or 6, then obviously the pay will be split between the 5 or 6 customers. But I can also put it to the companies in Abergavenny, would they be interested in having a contract with the different organisations for whatever day or whatever month? And I could pass that information on if that would be any help.
I think, because I know the bit of the background behind this question. Oh, okay, Richard.
Currently, yes, obviously I think this one is asking about visitors as well, I think, for people going visiting to the hospitals in the evening. You know, would that be viable? But you have to have, I think, you know, the mass of people to take if you're going to actually cut down on the cost of it. We're currently working with the ambulance service, actually, non-emergency patient transport. They've been running a number of pilot schemes throughout South Wales, whereby community transport operators are providing non-emergency patient transport rather than voluntary cars, etc. And obviously the ambulance service. What people are finding, if they try and book transport to go to a hospital appointment, what happens is that they get onto a ambulance, and it might take them 2 to 2.5 hours before they get to the hospital. Then they have to wait for everybody to finish their appointments before they go home. And basically they can be out all day to go for a half-an-hour appointment. So the ambulance service have looked at this and said, well, obviously we need to make this better for people, for, you know, the real emergencies, and for people who have problems that have to go on a stretcher, or perhaps, you know, certain wheelchair users. They would carry on with the ambulances, but community transport can get involved, as well taxis, I think they're looking at as well, that could take people to these hospital appointments for shorter journey times. And we've actually filled in a questionnaire recently on what services could be provided, and I think that's going to go out to a lot of companies in the area to do as well. So hopefully there will be some movement on that in the future.
When I was trying to find transport for what I was describing earlier, I spoke to Phillips Transport yesterday, who describe how the way Monmouthshire County Council is putting out their contracts has affected them in lots of different ways. But one of the things he said is he has an accessible bus that just sits doing nothing most of the time. He would be happy to put change his insurance so community groups like ours could use them, hire them, etc. Would that be something you would support, see as the way forward?
We support any help that we can get, really, because obviously resources are lower than they used to be for authorities. We don't get the same budgets. We are actually running more vehicles than we've ever run currently, but demand outstrips resources. I mean, we've got, I think it's almost 50 vehicles in the PTU, and we basically, like today, there's not a bus in the yard virtually because everything is out with the resources that we have. I mean, grassroots, some days we can be running 17 grassroots buses on one day, and that is to mostly Monmouthshire areas. I mean, we have perhaps one, maybe two in Newport maximum, one in Torvine, the rest are in Monmouthshire, and they can run more than one route per day as well. So obviously the actual resources that we have, the demand outstrips it, and you know, any help we can get from other operators or from other areas is quite welcome.
Surely it be cost effective then to have a coordinator to coordinate transport in the public-private sector? So many buses sit around doing nothing.
Well, it is difficult because you see some operate. The problem we have in Monmouthshire, we have a shortage of operators, believe it or not. We don't have enough operators to do the work, and if we put a school contract in for tender, we're lucky if we get one price back. Sometimes we don't get any prices whatsoever, and the PTU had to step in on a number of occasions this year to run some special needs contracts because we've been unable to get anybody to do them, taxi or minibus.
It's funny you say that because this man I was talking to yesterday, he's been doing this since 1971. He felt now the council were cherry picking their contracts. He was having
We're not cherry picking anything. They all go out to tender, basically. They all go through digital tender, through e-tender Wales. And obviously they're done through a procurement service, and basically we don't get any prices back. It's as simple as that, really. The people who are on the framework, they don't actually put prices in. Resource-wise, if you look at coach operators in the area, we have very, very few. There are only a small number of coach operators and minibus operators, and they're diminishing all the time. A lot of minibus operators have a restricted license, which means they can only have 2 minibuses. And a lot of those are taxi operators that run minibuses, you know, as a sideline to their business. But we just don't have the resources to cover the actual amount of demand.
Becky, I'll move on to the next question, please. Is Becky here? She's not, I'll read it out then. There are no buses after 5:30 PM, I'm presuming, in Abergavenny. What are people to do in the evenings? Otherwise, we're having to rely on taxis.
Obviously, again, we're down to a resource issue, but the amount of money that we get now from Welsh Government is diminished by over 27% on the amount of subsidies that we provide to bus operators to run these services. An evening service is not viable commercially. There are not enough passengers in the evening to enable any bus operator to run it on a commercial basis. Basically, even in the towns like Newport, some of the evening services now have to be subsidised, and authorities don't have that money now to subsidise these services. So unfortunately, without the resource, you know, we're not able to provide these services, and evenings and Sundays throughout Wales basically have diminished quite dramatically. Apart from the main towns, very, very few evenings or Sunday services still running.
Okay, move on to the next question then.
Only queues up by 50 plus organisation. I always felt that anybody who hasn't got a car and got to visit Neville Hall on a Sunday There's no buses. If you've got a show in a theatre in Abergavenny, there's no late buses. There's your Stepford coming up now, in a couple of weeks' time. What provision have they got for people living in Gilwyn, Goviron, or to see what's going on there, you know? That's my question. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Two points, if I may. Firstly, forgive me if I'm repeating anything that Richard has just mentioned, but through the Grassroots Committee, we are giving consideration to extending grassroots hours. That would be by separate application to the Traffic Commissioner, but would very much depend and rely on the volunteers who lead the volunteer-based scheme to be available to do that. That's something that we've looked at with Trevor and acknowledging Sylvia in the room as well as a possibility for us to do. By Stedford-wise, Monmouthshire County Council have been approached by the Stedford organisation and have been asked to provide transport, park and ride services, which we have actually been awarded to provide that service for the duration of that period. Details of which I'm sure will come out into the public domain fairly shortly, because they are still being confirmed, you know, the actual detail in that being confirmed. But fair to say, through my knowledge, that it does cover quite a wide area of Monmouthshire, so that there can be access to such an event.
Excuse me again. I have to go to the surgery in Crickhowell. I live in Gilwyn, and I have to go to the surgery in Crickhowell. If I didn't have a car, or any family had a car, I'd have to go to Abergavenny to Crickhowell. Could there be a service running to Crickhowell, Abergavenny, Crickhowell, like they do to Rutland? That'd be interesting.
There is a service that runs currently from Abergavenny to Crickhowell. It actually goes Abergavenny to Brecon. So it runs, I think it's an hourly service, which currently runs already.
Excuse me, can I give some time to the buses on this Abergavenny to Brecon? The first one is 7:30. The next one after that, Saturday of school holidays, is 10 to 9. After that it goes 10 o'clock, 10 to 11, 12 o'clock, 10 to 11, 12 o'clock, that's right, 10 to 1, 10 to 1, that's plenty, isn't it, so far? 10 to 1, 2 o'clock, 10 to 3, because they go around like Ganga, they do the 10 to the hours, 2 o'clock, 10 to 3, 4 o'clock, 5:05, and the last two is 10 to 6 and 10 to 7 to Brecon. And if that's a really excellent bus service, and that with those times. I know what you're saying is, I've always been told, well, buses are my speciality, I only get to run on buses. I study bus timetables all the time. I think I should go on to Mastermind. That's one of my subjects. If you want to know about politics, see the other different.
Monmouthshire needs experts in all sorts of fields. Like you are the bus expert, and we need
times
you.
and buses, you know, it gives me pleasure to give this information.
I can bring
my
Phyllis.
honest this morning before I left the house.
You turn the mic off, I can bring Phyllis in, please.
I'm not being tricky, I know the man's from Abergavenny, I know. What it is, I'm not very pleased. They cut us back, right? Because we more need help, we do, right? Well, why they do the free postmans by our place? And the postman, you know, there's a lot of money for free postmans. Well, can they have one postman?
We'll have to talk about that in our group.
No, I mean,
because this is transport. We're talking about the transport of the postman.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, it's okay. I'm sorry, Miss
Jenny, I can see your hands up. I would dare not say, please ask you, I would never cross you. You know that.
That's scary.
We're ahead by 3 minutes, actually, so you've got 3 minutes.
I only want a few seconds. I just want to know how these gentlemen are tackling the 15-mile limit, which means that you can't get from any town to any town in Monmouthshire, which is ridiculous. How are you working, or how can we work, or what pressure can we put to make this ridiculous ruling go? You can't get from one town to another, not to get to Abergavenny to Monmouth, or Monmouth to the hospital. That's ludicrous.
You can't do it directly. You can do it if you change vehicles, basically. I mean, that's how silly the rule is. But unfortunately, when you have a flexible bus route, we're stuck within that 15-mile limit. If it's a direct bus route, if it's a bus route that is directly registered as a local bus service, then they can go further than 15 miles. But they must have so many stops within that 15-mile radius. It's basically through the Transport Act. The Transport Act sets it out, and that's why we have to adhere to it.
I think we need to be making consultation higher up then.
Well, it's DFT, basically, Department for Transport, is where all the rules and regulations come from.
So that's a Westminster government responsibility. We need to start writing, Jen? Yeah? Okay. And we'll move on to the next question then, which is from Mike, who's not here. Okay, I'll read it out for the benefit of everybody. Monovale bus has been scrapped, which means we all go on one bus, that's 065s. What was taking me 2.5 hours is now taking me 45 minutes, which is great. Can we have more coordination like this, please?
Yes, it does.
Can I just say, the positive questions are usually more difficult than negative.
It is very positive, actually, and I think it reflects a little bit of what I spoke about earlier, where the passenger transport unit has been involved in particular areas where we've managed to condense resources and look at things a little bit sort of collectively, wider scope, looking at the resources and what we can provide and still do the same thing. I think Mike, thank you Mike, you're not here today, but thank you Mike for your acknowledgement of that. And also to let you know by response that we are involved in additional proposals in that area now, where we can look to coordinate other areas. We've done our bit with the Monovale situation and the over 65s. I know we're looking at a new project, still in the Monmouth area at the moment, but that is pending at this time. We have 3 proposals going forward on that, but obviously nothing confirmed as to what the service area would, of those 3 would like to take up at this time.
Thank you. I have a really good next question. It's the biggie. Jenny Barnes, please.
What is the new metro and how will it affect Monmouthshire?
Association with Transport Planning Policy Officer. That's a very difficult question to answer, because I am not quite sure that the people in charge can give you an easy answer. Effectively, the metro is a proposal to upgrade the heavy rail lines in South East Wales, plus having better bus rail integration. What it involves in practice so far is looking into specific works which can be done on the core rail lines. The Welsh Government's Metro team has got a long list of schemes where there are quite a number of Monmouthshire ones included in there, but at the moment we don't quite know about how this is going to be forward and when this is going to be forward, and in some cases what the precise detail is. I'm sorry this sounds very fluffy and vague, but that's really the information which we have. From a Monmouthshire point of view, if you go back and just Google it, look at the very first metro document, that ended in Newport and Pontypool on the railway line. And if you look at the latest Metro map, you see that it goes to Abergavenny, Chepstow, and includes Monmouth as well. So effectively what we are trying to do is to work with Welsh Government and Transport for Wales, which is their new executive agency, trying to ensure that the improvement which we like to see, which we believe, if we take their ambition seriously, should be part of the plan, are actually being delivered. But it's very difficult to say anything about timescales and what precisely we need to get out of it at the moment. So that's really because at the moment it doesn't really affect Monmouthshire that much. In particular, although I said we have got discussions with the Welsh Government about improving on the Abergavenny line, frequency enhancements and station improvements on the Chepstow Road, again frequency enhancements and doing something to the stations and new station Mega. We've talked to the Welsh Government about bus services to Monmouth in particular, and Chepstow, Monmouth, Abergavenny, and then on to Brecon. But we don't know whether anything will happen soon, or we don't even know by what time we would know. So
It's a biggie, and there's a lot happening on that. I'll come on to that after you've done questions. Next question from Graham Nels. Graham, you've got questions 7, 8 and 9.
Unfortunately, well, they already know.
Well, they're all important questions.
I say they already know because they listen to the same questions every time I meet them. So virtually, except Christian's got a nasty one at the end because I was hog-tied a few days ago and asked about it. So the first one is in relation to physical timetables. As you know from the last time we met, I'm representing 50 plus, and lots of my members, or lots of our members, want physical timetables. They have physical timetables for Blaine and Gwent, they have them for Torfaen, and for Stagecoach. I know it isn't directly Monmouthshire's remit. Mark Tunstall, the operations director, has told me that he will contact their commercial department. We're a tourist area. If Anslow can provide a nice little timetable for their new Monmouth Chepstow routes, a very nice timetable, which I was given by the bus driver, can we put some pressure on Stagecoach to do the same thing, as they now virtually run in all the Abergavenny and outward routes? Can we put some more pressure on them to get the same thing for Abergavenny, please, Richard?
Yes, we can speak to Stagecoach. They've actually got a new commercial director who's just started called Edward Reed. He's taken over from Stephen Wren, who is retiring in August. I'll approach him and ask him if they can do something about getting some timetables for the Abergavenny area. As far as Monmouthshire is concerned on physical timetables and timetable cases, we are embarking on a programme currently of doing a survey of all of our stops, timetable cases, shelters, etc. And we are starting to replace some of the broken timetable cases. We can then obviously update all the timetables within those cases. Abergavenny bus station will be one of those. That should be done fairly shortly. It'll certainly be done before the next Deptford. And it will also be, hopefully we'll get all the bus shelters cleaned, bus stations cleaned and finished within the next month or so. We did Monmouth bus station, I believe, on Sunday. That was the first one. And then we'll move on and do the others within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Thanks. Can I just ask a supplemental as well with Stagecoach in mind? Are they actively tracking yet, the buses, so that you can get it off your internet,
they should have GIS on their website. You should normally be able to get it direct from the website.
Sorry. The second question then is once again a thing of can we keep putting pressure on, and this is the the disabled lift for Abergavenny station in. I've added Chepstow because at our last meeting that we met Chepstow said they had problems with their bridge rather, as well, but we've had long-standing issue on getting proper disabled access at Abergavenny station. I know that the hold-up, I've spoken to Network Rail, and that the hold-up is this almost 18th century signal that they seem to have there. We're in the 21st century, but they rely apparently on the semaphore signal in order to see things, and they can't move the bridge without it. Can we continue to put the pressure on? I know the money that was there this year has been used for Seton Tunnel Junction but before this money eventually runs out, we would like to have a disabled lift in Abergavenny station if we could, please.
Yes, I mean, in Abergavenny you mentioned it, the idea of having a new bridge with a lift onto the platform is still in their program, and they say they can't do it until they've moved a certain signal, because a new bridge would be in the way of the driver seeing the signal, and I haven't heard anything about when they're going to move the signal, because they usually do them in complete re-signaling. And we will go back to Network Rail, who's running the program, and the DFT, who's actually paying for it, and ask them what can be done. It's between them two. I know it's a big issue. In terms of Chepstow, we may have sort of had good news in that the existing bridge is in a far worse state than they thought. When they've, if you've been to Chepstow recently, you've probably seen that they've done a bit of refurbishing on the old bridge. Our understanding is it's in a very poor condition, which means they might have to replace it earlier than they thought. And obviously the point to make is the thing is, if they replace it, please don't put in a temporary bridge while they take the existing one down, then put another 2-3 year long temporary bridge, which is the same as the existing one, then take the first temporary bridge off, and then in a few years' time put in the active travel, the access for all bridge. We want them to do it in one go, and we've started talking to or making the point to Network Rail, but we haven't got anything back yet. And we can let you know whether we hear anything about it.
So we might end up with Chepstow actually getting the bridge before we get the bridge in Abergavenny. That's the conclusion, is it, Christian?
I wouldn't go that far at the moment. Maybe it's literally something which we can just ask Network Rail where they are and pass information. But that's what it stands.
Thank you. The last question. At the last 50 plus meeting, I only just got out alive as a result of this question, because I had a very vociferous lady who was very keen on this issue, and this is on your, Christian, with your active travel, is she wants to get walking from Llanfoes to Neville Hospital, and we've got that situation where it's virtually impossible to cross the roads. Is there anything that can be possibly done to make it safer to walk, or for anybody to walk in from, other than the new pedestrian bridge I know that is going to come along, but on the actual physical road that exists, the pedestrian bridge is not going to make, even if when it turns up, it's not going to make a difference on that corner where you have to cross the road in order to get to the other side, to go to this side of town towards Neville Hall Hospital. So is there any way that that can be made safer?
Possibly, I'm not quite, I mean, I know that
you know where I'm talking about.
Well, in general in Mercer Road, but I'm not quite sure where you might see the key difficulties are. If you can give me the details, we can look into it and see what could be done. We do actually had a consultation on like active travel existing route maps last year, and we've got some funding this year to do lots of small bits across the county to do improvements small stage, just and apologies for those who put in suggestions which we haven't taken up, but it was only a really a bit of a step, and we wanted to make sure that we could deliver things. So we went for some very easy ones.
I should say, Christian, she is the same lady that took it up with you, so that's why you're probably not looking fairly shell-shocked as well. So.
Can I just make another point? Is we will have later this year a substantial consultation on our future key walking cycling routes in Abergavenny and all the other key towns, and we'll make sure that everybody in here will know about and hear about it.
Thank you. Jenny, please.
We've made representation over a long period to try and improve the access walking to the hospital from Llanfoist, and we put in recently to Christian the fact that the Merthyr Road needs improving, particularly the zebra crossing. I think it was disgraceful that that new zebra crossing was put in not by Monmouthshire, well, it may have been put in by them, but it was supervised by the Welsh Assembly, the roads people, and they haven't dropped the curbs of adjoining roads, so you can't walk straight along the pavement there. There's all sorts of problems with dropped curbs along that route. The Brecon Road, you can only access on the right-hand side. You can't get to Neville Hall on the left-hand side. Some places there are no pavement, and other places it's too narrow. So you've got to cross the road, and the crossings aren't very safe. But where improvements are made, it doesn't always happen properly. But the A40 is in the remit of the Welsh Assembly, not Monmouthshire, and that's a real problem along that route.
Thank you. I have a question at the back, please. Oh, sorry.
I was just wanting to, ask in relation to all this work that's going on about the metro, that we did notice, being from Monmouth, that on the first edition of this, Monmouth didn't even have the courtesy of being mentioned. But it's now on there in the sort of second version, but with some sort of vague thought about there might be some improvement to the bus service, which sounds to me like a bit of a cop-out. What I would actually like to see, and wonder whether there's any possibility we could actually give a serious consideration to getting a station in Monmouth, so that at least we could apply for a disabled lift.
Okay, starting with the last one first, we know Welsh Government had actually looked into reopening the Wye Valley line, and the initial consideration came back with saying that's unlikely to be value for money. So they did look into this, and it was really a big surprise that they came back and saying it's cost too much to make it worthwhile. And on the back of this, they said, but you really have to look into a better bus service. So, at least we got some of it, and we'll let you know if anything's coming out of this. In terms of,
Thing about that. I mean, it might be worth the thought of, having some discussions with places like Ross and Colford and things about whether there's some way one could put something back through there, because all of these towns are much in the same sort of situation really as Monmouth. They got, not very good sort of transport, and I mean, I think they're somewhat better than, Ross was somewhat better than Monmouth, but they've all been kind of knocked off the rail line, so there might possibly be some cooperation that one could look at.
I mean, we are talking to Gloucestershire about transport improvements, which we've got a joint interest, but I'm very sorry, I don't think there is likely to be a runner. I just don't think it will stack up on this thing. So just going back on the question of the drop curves, we will this year, or this financial year, before the end of March, put in a number of drop curves, and I'm pretty sure Mercer Road and a couple of other ones in Abergavenny are on the list. In terms of bigger things like crossings, I think there are a couple of small crossings as well, but I don't think there are any on Mercer Road. And one of the reasons was when we got the suggestions, we only had a very little time to determine whether we can actually deliver it, should we get funding for it within one financial year. And if we ask for the money and then not spend it, then our chances of getting money next year are somewhat reduced. So we really went for, shall we say, the low-hanging fruit in year one. And we are looking at the moment at all the other suggestions which we got last year, which we haven't been able to put forward to see what can we do about these.
Thank you. That brings then to the questions. Just want to put some background to the Metro. The Metro is something that was started by a combination of local councils or counties in South East Wales. Since then, things have developed very quickly. You may have heard of something called the Cardiff Capital Region, which is about a city deal. You've heard about city deals where the British government, the UK government, is devolving power to a combination of local authorities, devolving that power and finance to make decisions on things. So each city deal is bespoke. The Cardiff City deal, or the Capital Region, is the result of that negotiation between a number of local councils, including Monmouthshire, in that deal, and to create that. There will be new money coming from the UK government in order to do that, not from Welsh government, UK government. That leads on, one of the most primary things is the Metro, because the Metro is seen as being able to do lots of things, improve transport choices for people, such as Monmouth, such as Abergavenny. They're on the map. But what I can tell you is that Monmouthshire is a very big player in that capital region. It's all about future Monmouthshire. You've heard mention about that previously today. So just, as you can see, there's things going on in the background, a new sort of movement or initiative, particularly on transport. It's not just about transport, it's about other things. City Deal is going to affect us quite considerably. What I can tell you is that officers here at Monmouthshire are playing a very big forward role in that, and the rest of the conglomeration of those councils are looking at Monmouthshire for a lead, because we're seen as being innovative, etc. So you know you've got another forum later in the year. I don't know exactly when. October 15th. Is that an issue that you want to hear about? We'll articulate future Monmouthshire, but what we might have the opportunity is to get our people in to tell you, because they need to know, actually, if we're planning for a metro system, we're planning for other things under the city deal, an input needs to be made on accessibility and all other issues regarding the issues that you face every day. It's not about people commuting. It's not about people wanting to get from A to B. It's about every part of the community. At the moment, is that something that you want to take the opportunity to have an influence now on the development of those plans? That's one idea for our next one. I mean, if that's something you might be interested in doing, it's all about future Monmouthshire. I'll hand it over to you, see what you think, or any other ideas you've got for the next subject matter for the next forum, please.
It would be nice to have some sort of consultation in the infancy of something rather than it being sort of further down the line.
Well, if you get somebody from Welsh Government, somebody from the City Deal, they're all the big players in this. Is that something that you would like to hold people to account and see where their thinking is at the moment, and actually have they thought about you? Jenny, I know you've got quite detailed knowledge on this one, on transport issues, etc. and accessibility.
Yes, I mean, I think that it would be really good if we could actually get to the station. There's quite a lot of problems getting to stations in Chepstow and in Abergavenny. It's not, I mean, that really comes as first in some ways. And yes, it is good to have consultation. We usually find that new things are right. They go to the modern standards and guidelines. It's the old things that tend to not to be right. And with the station, in the past, we were given reasons why we didn't get that footbridge, and it wasn't that they're getting now. It was the fact that it was all listed, and you could see the listed bridge from the other bridge, which see the new bridge from the old bridge, and that affected the listing. So our own conservation officers were turning it down. So I think whatever fits, they give us a reason for not making the station accessible. And I think it is good to be consulted, but I would like a session on this session on consultation and how that's done, is going to be done, what's going to happen to this group when the money runs out, and how we can be involved with the council in the future. And there's consultation on all sorts of things, and it's part of statutory requirement now that you consult, and you consult with disabled people, and there isn't really a mechanism apart from this group for doing it.
Well, that's exactly why it was formed. Can I just take issue about consultation? You know my views on that one. Consultation usually means to me that a decision has been made and we'll consult.
Yeah.
I'd rather have let's engage,
so
which says we start at the beginning, we engage with people, because you just didn't hit the nail on the head on one thing. Consult about the metro or engage with us, because actually you can do what you want with railway stations, but how do you get there? So the engagement says how do you get there, the consultation says this is a great network. So we have a system called Monmouthshire Engages. I'm sure, I mean, we do have an issue over funding, we know that, which will pose as a question mark pretty soon about the forums and how we move beyond that, and what Monmouthshire is going to do to support it. So, to me, that sounds far, am I getting the feeling that's more of a priority for you, that you want to see this continue, but how they're going to continue in the light of the funding stream is coming to an end. And consultation is good, and I think we should talk about that, but I usually like the viewpoint as engage first, and then consult. Because how do we engage, how do we influence things, and how are we held to account? I mean, is that the next forum you want to have, which is what we do next? Where do we go from here? I could take a show of hands. But
could we have both?
Half and half?
do you want a full day?
Oh, God.
We've got a full day today.
Yeah.
What we can do is we could have a joint AG Well forum, access for all, join them together, because both are equally affected, and we'll try and do both. But if we can't do both, we'll do the engagement because we've got the officers on hand to do that. Is that sort of, is everyone content with that? Have we planned for that one?
Chair, Jenny and I have lived to a ripe old age now, and we've been down this path so many times before. We elect councillors to represent us, so that surely means engagement first. So I'm all for engagement, consultation, so forth.
Okay. So the next, we'll try for a good one at the next one, but please, yes, we'll get the Ranger officers in, and we'll plot out what we're going to do next. But you're absolutely right. This is your forum to hold people to account, like you've seen today. So, okay, it is now 10 to 1. We're actually ahead of time, so we're going to break early. Can I thank Richard Cope, Hugh Jones, Christian Schmidt, Nigel Webb and Robin Evans, to all those who've put the questions challenged today, and again, special thanks to Penny, without whom we would not have this. So thank you all for your contributions, and hope we'll see you this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Can I just add, if this is your first ward, can you come and fill in the inequalities form for me, just for the records there up front here?